everybody, how's it going? This is Max with Buzz Talks here, and I'm back with a Game of Thrones news video, where I go and watch it on the wall, and I give my thoughts on the latest news stories to break. I just want to quickly issue a spoiler warning to all of you out there who don't want to get spoiled about Game of Thrones Season 7. This deals with plot leaks, set leaks, all that fun stuff, so if you don't want to know, leave right now. But let's get into the biggest news. So we are actually going to see Highgarden and Casterly Rock in Game of Thrones Season 7. The crew has been filming at a castle called Almodovar del Rio, if I'm pronouncing that right. And this castle could actually be doubling for both Casterly Rock and Highgarden. It's a castle that has been renovated over and over throughout the years, so it has multiple styles that they can choose from. And what you have to remember is these castles are going to look dramatically different, but they're using different pieces and different angles for the different castles, and then they'll digitally recreate the rest of the castle, like what they did with Winterfell. It started off with just a tower and kind of a keep, and then they digitally recreated the actual castle that it is now. But the main set leaks and plot leaks that we have gotten actually apply to Highgarden and that whole storyline. So let me get right into that. So what will happen is that the Lannisters will actually take over Highgarden. And I gotta say, this actually does make a lot of sense. Cersei's now sitting on the throne with 0 allies, and she's a part of a family that is in so much debt, and they owe the Iron Bank so much money. And since she already exterminated the richest house in the Seven Kingdoms, only leaving Lady Olenna, it would make sense to capitalize on the opportunity and take all of their wealth. So I think from a strategy point of view, it does make sense to move in and take over the Reach and maybe put somebody in power that will actually be loyal to the Lannister cause. Because Cersei has so many people against her, she doesn't want the Iron Bank sending in a faceless man to come in and assassinate her. She wants to make sure she's on good terms with the banks so they don't fund her enemies. So the Lannisters end up taking Highgarden, and we know this because we see a Lannister flag flying over the castle. And there are a couple really important characters there. We see Jaime Lannister, we see Bronn, and we also see Randyll Tarly. So what we're actually going to witness is we're going to see Randyll Tarly actually form an alliance with the Lannisters. And I have to say, this actually does make a lot of sense. A while back, I questioned what bannerman would be loyal to the Tyrell name if they have no male heirs. Cersei ended up killing Loras, and Mace Tyrell is also dead. All that's left is Lady Olenna. So it makes sense to me that Randyll Tarly will want to negotiate with the Lannisters and betray the Tyrells to maybe, hopefully, rule the Reach in his name. And what's interesting is that there has also been reports that there's a body double for Diana Rigg, who plays Lady Olenna. And I think what we are going to see is the Lannisters take over Highgarden. And then unfortunately, I think we're going to see Lady Olenna die, because there's nothing left for her, and I think they're not going to kill her. I think it's going to be a very subtle. Jaime will let her kill herself, maybe with poison or something like that. I believe that was in the plot leaks, and that does make the most sense to me. But then after all that, we're going to get an action sequence that is almost on par with Battle of the Bastards. And this will take place either a quarter or a third of the way through episode 4. And I also think this is going to be a different sequence, and a little bit of time would have passed from the Lannisters taking over Highgarden to this sequence. And what this sequence is actually a fight between Daenerys' army and Lannister soldiers. What the Lannisters are doing is they're taking all of the Tyrell assets and they're shipping them off to King's Landing. That could be gold, that could be food, that could be many different things to sustain King's Landing, as well as pay off the Iron Bank. So we're going to see a lot of different things. We're going to see Dothraki actually attacking the caravans that are actually being carried away to King's Landing from Highgarden. And on the set, they've actually seen a lot of horses charging towards an imaginary enemy, which is going to be CGI filled, I'm sure. And we're going to see Daenerys flying her dragons, which is interesting. So what Daenerys has to think about with flying these dragons is you don't want civilian casualty of your own men. You don't want her flying through the battlefield, crisping all of her enemies while the Unsullied or while the Dothraki are a part of that fight. So maybe she's using Drogon or her dragons to burn some of these caravans that don't mean anything to her, but it makes sense for me that she would also want to keep these assets, keep the food, keep maybe some gold to sustain her people. Now what I find most interesting about this sequence is that Jaime and Bronn are going to be a part of the ambush. Now what I love about this, and this hasn't happened yet in Game of Thrones, is that we have a fight between two sides where fans like characters that are fighting on both sides. So it creates kind of a scary divide where we kind of want Daenerys to win the war against the Lannisters, but at the same time we're so scared that Jaime or Bronn can get hurt. And I think there's a lot of drama that can kind of be picked out with that. You have Daenerys flying her dragons, fighting off Lannister men. You have Tyrion just standing outside of the fight in a safe place but watching. And you have Jaime and Bronn kind of stuck in the middle of the chaos between the Dothraki and the dragons. And this, I think, is where the majority of the drama is going to come from. Like in Battle of the Bastards, we follow Jon. I think it would be great if we follow Jaime and Bronn as they try to defend themselves from the Dothraki, and we see them overtaken by dragons. But I think for this scene to really mean something, I think Bronn should die. I think it would be the perfect opportunity for Bronn to be killed, either by a Dothraki soldier or something. And the reason why I think it's perfect is because Bronn has become so close with Jaime, but has also been really good friends with Tyrion. And I think it's interesting to have this war, and Tyrion on one side and Jaime on the other in the same location, and have their friend die amongst them fighting. And I think that could further create conflict between the two brothers, and I think that would be a really interesting plot point to throw in the middle of this, and it would really allow this scene to mean something, other than it just being an action sequence. And another quick interesting fact is that Jaime has actually been seen having Widow's Wail, which was Joffrey's sword before he died. So I want to get your guys' opinion in the comment section down below. What does that mean? I feel like Jaime has to kill somebody of significance to make the sword mean something. Maybe he kills Cersei with it. Maybe he kills another character, which gives a good reason for him to actually have that sword. But I couldn't come up with anything, so I'm shifting it on to you guys. But moving on, apparently there's an even bigger sequence than the one I just talked about. And it's going to be set in the north. We have some set photos from Belfast actually showing them create a really icy set. And it looks like it's over the wall. Just by the way they did the ground, it looks like ice and a lake. And it's said that there are going to be over 300 whites. And it's going to exceed the Lannister-Tyrell sequence, which I talked about earlier, as well as it's going to take 3 weeks to film. And I don't think there's any purpose to go over the wall unless you're going to stick to this plot leaks that leaked earlier. So unfortunately, I do think Jon is going to take a group of people and go beyond the wall and try and capture a white, because I can't think of any other reason why they would want to go over the wall. And it looks like clearly by these photo leaks and by this information that they're most definitely filming a giant sequence over the wall. And finally, I just want to quickly talk about Winterfell. There have been reports that Sansa, Arya, and Bran are all actually going to reunite. And Winterfell's actually going to be a slower season. It seems like there's not going to be any action set pieces. It's going to be focused around drama. And I think that drama is really going to focus around Arya and Sansa. And the plot leaks have actually talked about this, but Watchers on the Wall has finally confirmed it, that they're really going to be clashing over how to rule. Because the sisters are already so different, but after their experiences with Arya going and becoming a faceless man, and Sansa being used for her Stark name, these two, I believe, have only grown further apart, and it's been reported that Littlefinger is going to try and capitalize on these differences and try and turn them against each other. But that is it for all the Game of Thrones news. If you have any predictions or thoughts about these plot leaks, leave a comment down below. I love to read them. And you guys can expect another Game of Thrones news video next week. See you guys later.